What's up guys, Jonah Mathis here. So today we're going over the Vizio Elevate soundbar system. This is probably the most unique soundbar that I've ever reviewed, and this is because of its rotating upward firing speakers. Isn't this so cool? Now we'll cover these rotating speakers a little more later on in the video, so make sure you keep watching. I worked really hard to get this video out to you guys quickly, so I'd appreciate it if you click the like button to help with the YouTube algorithm. This helps my channel grow and get my videos out to more people. Now, let's get on to the video. First, I want to talk about the packaging of this thing. Now, I really don't like these odd-shaped soundbar boxes. Personally, I think they get damaged more than full-size boxes. And speaking of getting damaged, I noticed a large broken chunk out of the side of my box, and unfortunately, my subwoofer has a big impacted chunk on its side. I doubt this is a normal thing, but it's not a big deal because I can return it and get a replacement. I think it's just cosmetic damage, so I move forward with my testing anyways. So inside the box, you get the soundbar itself, an 8-inch wireless subwoofer, 2 surround speakers that connect to the subwoofer, and a bunch of cables. They actually provide more cables than any other soundbar system that I've seen. You get an HDMI, digital optical, RCA to 3.5mm, 3.5mm auxiliary, power for both the soundbar and subwoofer, and RCAs for the surround speakers. It also comes with some mounting hardware to attach it to the wall, a mounting template, user manual, and probably the coolest soundbar remote that I've ever seen. More on that later. Moving on to the design and connections. I absolutely love the design of this soundbar. It's pretty slim when compared to other soundbars out there with a height of just 2.6 inches. It's fairly wide at 48 inches, which is slightly wider than the Sonos Arc and about the same as the Samsung Q950T, but it's much deeper than others at 6.5 inches. So if your TV isn't mounted to the wall, make sure you can clear your TV or it may be hanging off of your entertainment center. The Elevate has a latching mechanism on the bottom that seamlessly docks with the base of the Vizio OLED TVs. It's a pretty cool feature that I haven't seen with any other soundbar out there, and it weighs in at 7.2 pounds, which is extremely light for some of the Dolby Atmos soundbars out there. I'm pretty sure the grills on the front are made out of plastic, but they have a very modern looking design to them. They have a dark silverish color with a slight glossy finish, and the top of the soundbar is a matte black color with a nice line design to it. The buttons are all located on the right side. There's a power button, input, Bluetooth, volume down, and volume up. Now there's no physical display on the front, but there is a complex array of LEDs on the front that help you adjust the volume, levels for various channels, and more. The soundbar has many different connections on it. Of course, there's a power input, then it has 2 HDMI inputs and an HDMI out or HDMI eARC port. I'm happy to see that they've included HDMI inputs and the HDMI eARC so anyone can get their lossless Dolby Atmos or DTS-X content to it easily. It also has a digital optical in, auxiliary in, and auxiliary in for voice assistance. So if you have an Echo Dot, then you can connect it to the aux VA port and use the soundbar as a speaker for your voice commands. You can also connect to a voice assistant over Bluetooth. A lot of the soundbars simply have Alexa or Google Assistant built in, but I guess this works too. Now let's quickly discuss the subwoofer and the surround speakers. The subwoofer is fairly large at almost 11 inches wide, 14 inches deep, and 15.6 inches tall. It's more of a cube-shaped design, which I really do like. The design is very simple, it's completely matte black around it, and has a dark silver cover on the top. It is also a down-firing subwoofer, so you'll get that ground-shaking bass that you typically don't get out of a lot of other wireless subwoofers. On the back, there's a power input and the surround left and surround right outputs. There's also a pairing button in the event that you need to repair the soundbar and subwoofer. Then the 2 surround speakers are very small and simple. They're 2.8 inches wide, 3.74 inches deep, and 5.9 inches tall, weighing in at a measly 1.3 pounds. You can't really expect to get a whole lot out of these things at that light of a weight. On the back, they have a single input for audio and power, and there's a threaded mounting hole. Also, they aren't labeled as surround left or surround right, so that's completely dictated by where you connect them to on the subwoofer. So altogether, this is a 5.1.4 channel soundbar system. You have 5 channels firing at ear level, 1 subwoofer, and 4 channels firing upwards. Now the soundbar always has 3 channels of audio. It has the left, center, and right channels, and a total of 13 speaker drivers. When it detects Dolby Atmos or DTS-X content, the sections on the end automatically rotate upwards and create 2 upward firing channels. This is by far the coolest thing about this soundbar system. Then we have the subwoofer, which makes this a 3.1.2 channel system, and each of the surround speakers are in a 1.0.1 channel configuration, which makes the complete system 5.1.4 channels. That's a lot of numbers, I know, but it makes sense, I promise. The setup process is pretty simple. You connect the soundbar to your TV via the HDMI out or eARC port, connect the soundbar to power, connect the surround speakers to the subwoofer, then connect the subwoofer to power. The soundbar will constantly say pairing until it finds and connects with the subwoofer. I didn't have any issues with getting the soundbar and subwoofer paired correctly. It's a pretty seamless process. But where the setup process isn't as simple is when you're connecting the soundbar to Wi-Fi. Well, at least in my experience. It took a very long time for the app to actually find the subwoofer, and then once the app finally found it, it took quite a while for it to actually connect to my network. I've never had any issues like this with any of the other soundbar systems, by the way. Once it connects to the network, it will automatically perform a firmware update, and in total, this was probably a 10-minute process that I really didn't enjoy. The instructions aren't very clear about the setup process. I could see this being an issue for people who aren't very technical, and overall, the app just has some very odd bugs to it. In general, I'm just not a big fan. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this system comes with the coolest remote control that I've ever seen with a soundbar. At the very top, it has a small backlit LCD display. I know some people may prefer to use their TV remote or a universal remote of some sort, but this thing is just cool, which makes me really want to use it. The remote control lets you easily adjust every single setting for the soundbar. You can easily change the input and know exactly which input the soundbar is currently on without having to look at the soundbar itself or, stand up and go look at the top of the soundbar. I'm looking at you, Q950T. You can also adjust the levels of each channel pair, bass, treble, and dialogue. It's actually pretty easy to do this too. When you press the level button on the remote, the option you're adjusting appears on the remote's display. Then you can easily raise or lower the setting by pressing the right or left button on the remote control. You know exactly what the level is set to by looking at the soundbar's LED indicators on the left side. It's pretty interesting how they do this without putting a display on the soundbar itself. There's a few EQ options you can cycle through, and there's many other settings that you can adjust. I'm not going to cover every single one because that would just be boring. You can also adjust every single option in the app itself, so you're not forced to use the remote control. I'm looking at you again, Q950T. Now, getting to these options is kind of confusing at first. When you have another Vizio product connected to your network, it may not automatically select the Elevate soundbar. You have to select it at the top, then when you tap Settings, you have to tap Vizio Elevate again to actually get into its options. Now, it may not sound that confusing, but at first I was kind of lost and thought I might not be able to change options inside the app itself. I did notice a big delay and some bugginess when using the application. The levels for the bass, treble, and channels don't seem to take effect quickly and tend to jump around even after you've set it to a certain level. This happens whether you use a slider or set the number manually. I'm not sure if this is a problem for others because there aren't any other reviews of the Elevate at the time of this recording. So now with everything connected and set up properly, let's discuss the most important thing about any soundbar system out there: the audio quality. I was honestly pleasantly surprised with the audio quality that this thing produced. I compared the Elevate to both the Nakamichi Shockwave Pro and the Samsung HW-Q950T to hear the differences between them all. When listening to music through Spotify Connect, it sounded absolutely amazing in my opinion. It outperforms the Nakamichi by a fair amount and comes pretty close to the Samsung Q950T, and that's a $1,500 soundbar system, by the way. The mid-range and highs coming from the soundbar are very clear with no distortion even at high volume levels. The subwoofer is extremely impressive and is much better than both the Shockwave Pros and the Q950Ts. Since it's a down-firing subwoofer, if positioned correctly, you can get ground-shaking bass that I know a lot of people are going to love. If you'd prefer it to be a little more mild, you can simply lower the subwoofer's level in the app or with the remote control. But I'll be honest, I was just very impressed with the subwoofer and it by far exceeded my expectations. The surround speakers add a little extra during music playback. It's enough for you to notice and acknowledge, but isn't too impressive. Things get interesting when watching Dolby Atmos or DTS-X content. This is where the Elevate's wide speakers automatically rotate upwards. I'll be honest, the soundbar isn't as impressive once these speakers rotate. You can definitely hear the height channels in a smaller room, but I don't think you'll hear them quite as well in a medium-sized or larger room. The effects are very clear and audible, but not quite as good as the Sonos Arc or Q950T. Granted, both of those are more expensive systems overall. I played quite a few Dolby Atmos and DTS-X test files from my Plex media server to both the Elevate and Q950T to compare them. From what I heard, the Elevate's front soundstage is still wide enough for you to depict where the sounds are coming from and still sound very good. The upward firing speakers work pretty well and give you the immersive feeling that I think most people are looking for. The subwoofer absolutely dominates. The rumble it produces, again, is just very impressive. And the surround speakers add a little cherry to the top of this system. They're not very powerful, you can easily tell this from their size, but they're noticeable enough for you to appreciate them. To be honest, you can barely hear the height channels from them. I don't think the speaker drivers are quite strong enough to clearly bounce the sound off the ceiling into the top of your ears, but they're a nice touch. So now I want to go over the things that I really like about the system. So first, the overall audio quality for the price is not a bad deal. I bought this thing for $1,000 and I'm happy with the quality at that price. Soon after I bought it, the price dropped $300 to $700 in total. So if you can get it for that price, I would jump on this system immediately without question. The rotating speakers, man, they're just really cool. Plus, in general, I like the color scheme and overall design of this system. Next, I really do like the design and functionality of the remote control. It beats every other soundbar's remote control by a mile. The subwoofer is a complete and total beast. It's loud and punchy, whereas most wireless subwoofers are not impressive at all. Except you, Sonos sub, you're still the king of wireless subwoofers. The 2 HDMI inputs and the HDMI eARC port, I'm glad that they future-proofed this thing. People shouldn't have to worry about having enough HDMI inputs, especially if they have an HDMI eARC compatible TV. Now I want to talk about the things that I don't like about this system. The onboard voice assistant is kind of annoying, but I get the purpose of it. It lets you know when the soundbar is pairing with the subwoofer, what input you're currently on, and things like that. But it's still annoying in my opinion. It's nothing like Amazon Alexa or the Google Assistant, so you can't actually control anything with it. It's more so there to just audibly annoy you. The LED indicators for volume level and control of channel levels is cool, but I'd honestly just prefer a display on the soundbar itself, preferably on the front. I noticed on a few of my Dolby Atmos and DTS-X test files that the audio would cut out and revert to a 2.0 channel configuration for some reason. I can't reproduce it when streaming anything from Netflix, Hulu, or Amazon, only when I play a couple of Dolby True HD or DTS-Master audio files from my Plex server. So I don't know if it's an issue with my files themselves or if it's having some type of decoding issue. And it only does this on a couple of the test files. It works perfectly fine with other files with the same exact audio codec. So if you guys have any idea what might be causing this, I'd love to hear your ideas in the comments down below. And lastly, I wish I could get a very wide soundstage and the upward firing audio at the same time. I know this is because of the rotating speakers, but the audio quality of having both of these would make the system that much better. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really did like this soundbar and I enjoyed testing it and listening to it. So if you're interested in purchasing it, you can find it in a link down in the description. Also, I have a big video coming up soon of me comparing 5 or maybe 6 high-end Dolby Atmos and or DTS-X soundbars. So if you aren't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you smash that subscribe button and make sure you click the bell to be notified when I post this video. If you're watching this video a few weeks after it's been posted, I'll have a notification there or down in the description so you can go watch it right after this video. If you have any questions or think I missed something in this video, make sure you leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to respond and answer as many questions as possible. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.